In this video, I want to tell you if we are getting elites in Kill Team and how I think they would be added. When the new Kill Team first released, one complaint I heard from almost everyone is that some of the models would no longer be legal, and that they wouldn't be able to run their bigger, badder units like Terminators. So this leads to the obvious question, which is, are we getting elites in Kill Team? And to answer that, I think we need to look at how Games Workshop typically releases content for their games. Their typical strategy is they will generate buzz and hype for a game or expansion, but then will give you a very bare bones release with only one or two factions included. They do this while already having the roadmap built for years in advance. Looking at something like 9th edition 40k is a great example of this. The rules for 9th edition were dropped around July of 2020, and then only the codexes for Necrons and Space Marines were launched shortly after. Since then, we have had a codex release every couple of months after that. This will continue until all of them are released, and then will likely progress to 10th edition. When 9th edition was being planned, they knew that every faction was eventually going to get a codex, and that they'll likely have a rough release schedule and plans for each one already made. But they purposely spread them out over time so they can constantly have products to release. Just to be clear, I'm not saying this is a negative. A company should have a roadmap for years ahead, and be working on and planning products and marketing years in advance. This is really common in a lot of industries, and staggering releases make a lot of sense for business and financials. We saw a similar method used in the old Kill Team. We got the normal game, followed by elites, and then commanders, with occasional expansions in between those. We've already seen part of the roadmap for Kill Team. It includes a war zone every quarter that will have 2 factions, a book with the lore and data sheets for those factions, as well as some of the terrain. From the roadmap, it looks like we'll be getting one of these Warzone updates every quarter for roughly the next year or so. Because they only want to give so many teams a Kill Team focused version like the Death Corps or Commandos, I think that after about a year, the Warzones every quarter will stop and we'll get a preview of elites at about the year to year and a half mark. This will most likely be the models that were in the original elites book from the original Kill Team. This will give Games Workshop something that appeals to all the Kill Team players. They can promote them to get new models for their assisting teams, and sell us the book that will have the datasheets for all the elite models, and help renew interest in the game by completely changing up the meta. Just to reiterate what I think the timeline will look like, we'll get 3 to 5 war zones counting Chalnath, and in that time frame we'll get hints and previews of the elite book, with it releasing a few months later. This will likely be a book similar to the Compendium that's just a book of datasheets. I don't see there being a bunch of fluff and lore in this book. The other side I want to look at is how would elites be integrated into Kill Team. With 40k in the past Kill Team, there was a point system. When they added elites, they simply increased the maximum point limit, and the elite models were typically expensive on the point side, so you could only integrate a few per team. But we no longer have the point system. We now have a system where you have a Kill Team that's composed of Fire Teams, while most teams have 2 Fire Teams per Kill Team. There's a few different ways they could add elites into this system, and I want to go over the pros and cons of each. The first and simplest way is simply by adding the Elite Fireteams as regular Fire Teams. This would cause basically no confusion. It would be like opening your compendium and each faction just having other Fire Teams there, but those Fire Teams are probably only 1 to 3 models. The pro of this method is that it's easy to understand. It'd be like if the original Kill Team didn't increase the points up to 125 or 150, and just added Terminators and other units that were high point cost. The main con of this is that it decreases the size of the game as far as how many models we'll see on the field at a time. It would make it feel like there's a lot of custody style teams on the field. While I imagine most players like seeing roughly 10 models per team, I don't think this small number count is the vibe they want to go for. The next thing they could do is the equivalent of increasing the maximum points by increasing the amount of Fire Teams per faction. And then making a Fire Team with elites be very prohibitive, where you're only allowed to take 1 elite Fire Team per Kill Team, and it only includes 1 or 2 models. For balance, adding 1 team to something with only 1 Fire Team currently is a doubling in power like with Space Marines. But most Kill Teams have 2 Fire Teams, so adding an additional Fire Team is only a 50% boost, so they may have to add 2. I'm not sure exactly how they want to balance that out, but that's something to consider as well. The main benefit to adding more fire teams are your options when list building. You have a lot of flexibility, and it doesn't actually change the way list building works. The biggest negative to this is that games may take a lot longer and may have a lot of additional models on the board. This would especially be true for any teams that don't take their elite option, because they might just have an extra 50% to double their team size. I don't think this next option is likely, but they could simply add in an elite fire team slot into each kill team. So when the rest of your list is the same, you just get to add one group of elites into each team. This would be a really simple way to do it, and would make balancing really easy for Games Workshop. But the reason I don't think they would do this is it takes away all creativity and the fun of list building. Let's say that orcs only had knobs as their elite option. Well, you know 100% of orc lists will have knobs, because they literally have to run them and have no other option. While this may be how they do it, I hope if it is the method they're using, that each team has several options, just to keep some variety and keep list building interesting. The option I find most interesting is similar to one I mentioned before. I think they could increase the amount of fire teams per kill team, but then make the elite fire teams take up multiple slots. To show what I mean, let's use orcs as an example. Let's say a knob fire team is 5 knobs, but it takes up 2 fire teams to select this option. So you have 3 fire teams to choose from. 2 of those will be used up for a knob fire team, while the other is used up for a boys fire team. So you get 1 fire team of knobs and 1 fire team of boys. I know this sample isn't balanced, and I know it would be hard to balance how strong each elite team needs to be to make up for 2 regular fire teams, but I think this is the most interesting method for the balance in the game, and we could see Games Workshop using something along these lines. The final option I want to talk about is completely redoing the compendium list building. I don't see them nuking the entire system to rebuild it for an expansion. Like I said earlier, they plan this stuff years in advance, so I'm sure they were already accounting for elites when they were building the compendium. Let me know which of these methods you think they'll use, if any of them, or if you think they'll even do something like this for some kind of style of expansion with elites or commanders. These are just my educated guesses, and they could be totally off. Another thing to think about, and I haven't come up with a good answer for this, is how they will handle the elites with the new fashions like Tau Pathfinders or Commando, Deathcore of Krieg, all the stuff from the war zones. The Warzone groups only have 1 fire team, and it's not like they'll release new models just so they can have an elite option. So if anyone has any idea of how they'd handle these teams, I'd be really interested in reading it. So I do think the expansion is coming, and will probably involve some kind of increase in the number of fire teams to accommodate for the new options. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tabletop gaming content in the future, and thank you for watching.